This looks a whole lot like a drone I just made a review on, but there's a really big difference. This is the Meteor65 HD, and right in here you can see it's got an SD card slot, right? That is because it records HD video as you fly. So it's very similar to the regular Meteor65, but a couple of little differences, including it has a different flight controller, an all-in-one board that's really kind of pretty unique. So stay tuned and I'll tell you all about this one and how it's different than the other Meteor65 that we just looked at. Okay, so at first glance, it's really kind of hard to tell the difference between the original Meteor65, or the regular standard Meteor65, and this little guy, the HD version. But there are some pretty important differences, starting with the camera. This has an HD camera on here. It's a nano HD camera. It's BetaFPV's little deal. And that's different. Inside, there's a slot for an SD card, so you can capture HD video footage. So if you want to think of this as the world's smallest Cinewhoop, you kind of can. But the flight controllers are very different, right? This is an F4 flight controller, as is this one, but this one is a real all-in-one board. So you got the ESCs, you've got the flight controller, and the VTX is built in. Now there's actually a UFL connector on here, which makes it a little different than some of the other all-in-one boards. And it's really pretty nice. That's going to shave some extra weight for you. The motors are 0802 SE Special Edition 22,000 kV motors, and they pack a pretty decent punch. All right, let's do a little bit more flying with the BetaFPV here. Has a microphone, do ya? Check 1, check 2, mic check 1, mic check 2. I don't know, we'll find out. All right, we've got a quick turn mode here. Yeah, I had to check the mic. It does, of course, work, but it really doesn't sound very good. Let's take a listen to the motors right now. So yeah, I probably just use that maybe to identify what flight this is or whatnot. I'm giving my son a hard time here. Look how darn close he is to the TV. I mean, goodness sakes, and he's not even fazed by this drone. I don't quite get it, but whatever. I'll come back and give him a little nudge with the drone in a second. But yeah, this is a fun little flyer. You know, not quite as nimble as the standard Whoop, but still lots of fun. Here we go. Little bump. This is not the first time that BetaFPV has put out a 65mm HD Whoop, right? We got one right here. And this guy was a 2S version, so you had to fly with 2 batteries, and it was a little bit over 30 grams. This one's checking in at 27 grams. Now, 3 grams doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is, right? That's 10%. Think about if you're a 200-pound dude and you lost 20 pounds, that'd be significant, right? So that's what we're talking about here. Plus, it only needs to carry 1 battery versus 2, also a huge weight saving. Not to mention that all-in-one board, you don't have to put a dedicated VTX, which, I'll be honest, the dedicated VTXs on these things aren't very good. And I actually think that this integrated one's a tiny bit better. Still not fantastic, but a tiny bit better. So which one of these do I prefer to fly? Well, it's actually this one. Being a lot lighter, it actually is a little bit more nimble. This one flies a whole lot more like a traditional tiny Whoop. But can it hang with the original? No, not really, right? There are some definite disadvantages here. The field of view on this camera is a little bit more narrow, right? So it's not quite as wide, so you don't see quite as much, which, you know, is probably good for recording HD video. But in terms of getting that whole field of view so you can fly, I mean, that's really a personal preference, but I prefer it. So also there tends to be a tiny bit more latency with this whole HD setup. I don't really say that I notice it, but other people do. I can still fly just fine-ish, right? I still make my errors. Let's call that the latency. Actually, no, latency's huge. I keep crashing. It's definitely the latency's fault. No. But, you know, I flew, gosh, I don't know how many batteries on this thing. Then I went back to the original just to kind of see, you know, how do they compare? And I got pretty good flying this one, or relatively good. But then going back to this one, man, is this one so much quicker and more nimble and more powerful. It's like going from driving a Miata to a Corvette almost, right? I mean, I guess maybe a Corvette's not an apt comparison for something this small, but you get the idea, right? There's just so much more torque and power and maneuverability in something this much lighter. Overall, I really like flying this thing. You know, in terms of HD Whoops, not necessarily my favorite thing, but this one definitely has some merit. It's more maneuverable than HD whips of the past, and they just keep getting lighter and more maneuverable and better. So while it's not perfect, I do like it. The biggest drawback, I would say, is the camera quality. It just isn't as nice of a feed as, you know, say this standard one. And even the less maneuverability actually sometimes works in your favor because you're not going quite as fast. It's a little bit easier to maneuver at slightly slower speed. So you can kind of keep that in mind. So if you are looking for a whoop this indoor whoop season and you want something for HD, yeah, this is definitely a viable option. Now, will it replace this? Definitely not, right? I still prefer flying one of these. I like the maneuverability, but, you know, if I want some better solid pictures and video, this is the choice. Before I wrap this up, a couple of other things you're going to want to know about this guy. I've already mentioned the 0802 motors, the 22,000 kV, pretty solid. 31 millimeter props. They are props in, right? Sometimes they've been fluctuating between props in, props out. They're props in. It'll handle a standard micro SD card up to 32 gigs, I believe. This flight controller is really nice. BL Heli S ESC. The VTX is 25 milliwatts. And the camera, you can actually change some settings on the camera by moving both of your sticks to the right to get into that menu, and you can adjust some things. You can kind of like adjusting settings on Betaflight. You're just moving the sticks in a different direction. So if you're looking for an HD whoop, this probably is your best option. I have not tested the Mobula 6 HD, but it's pretty similar to this. Odds are this one is probably a tiny bit better. The UFL connector, Happy Model isn't known for their super reliable all-in-one boards, whereas BetaFPV kind of has a step up there. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. If it was, hey, let us know. Give us a thumbs up. If you have questions, leave it down below. And if you're interested in picking one of these up, I've got a link for you down in the description below. Yes, it is an affiliate link. That's how you can help support this channel. Hey guys, thanks for checking in. If you haven't already, check us out on halfchrome.com where we have everything from photography to FPV. But don't forget, we also now have a Patreon where you can communicate with Chris or I directly and be part of our monthly drone giveaway. We're giving away a drone every month to one of our Patreons. Gotta subscribe to our Patreon for that. Details in the description below. Hey, thanks for checking in. Good luck and happy flying.